It is crunch time live, baby, and we are here on championship week. I'm your host, Tim Petropoulos, of course, here with a very, very special guest. If you don't know already, Mr. Kevin Coleman, aka The Boys 22 on Twitter. He is the featured Devy writer for Fantasy Pros, co-host of the Devy Royale, co-host of the Super Fantasy Football Bros, and co-owner of Triple Play Fantasy. Is there anything this guy doesn't do? That's the question. What's up? What's up, Kevin? Thanks for joining us today. It's championship week, baby.
It's championship week. We made it. It's been a long year. So no, I appreciate you having me on. I don't do IDP. That's the one thing I definitely don't do. I don't go down that rabbit hole, but no, I appreciate you having me on. I usually can't do these shows because kids and everything out here, but today I had some time, so I love the BRoto guys. So I don't mind jumping on with you guys.
Excellent. And we're even though you have that sign in the background there,
we're gonna make sure every season first. Yes.
Joe Mixon, he did it this year. Congratulations to all the people out there who believe in Joe Mixon. 5 years later, finally came true. We appreciate you, Joe Mixon truthers out there.
Hey, best things come to those who wait, and I waited, and I'm in some championships because of him. So I appreciate you, Joe. Just want to say, don't let me down today.
Yeah, so a tough matchup today. And speaking of that, this is we've got some news coming out. So before we get into the start sit questions, and remember, I'm going to keep it going. The crunch time guarantee is that we are going to get to every single one of your questions. But before we do, we're going to get into some player news because there's some player news that broke. And I just want to talk to you about that. One big guy, you mentioned that you have a player, Antonio Brown, in a championship this week. Mike Evans just got announced that he's going to play in a quote unquote limited capacity, like legitimately the worst thing you could wish for as a fantasy football manager. So with that being said, how are you approaching Mike Evans and how are you approaching Antonio Brown and the rest of those weapons in Tampa Bay?
Oh, so bad, man. These are the ones that kill you because you make the wrong decision and you think about it all offseason as you're sitting there in second place. I would say this, like, I am worried about Mike Evans more. I worry about that injury, and that injury is such you can re-injure that thing so quickly. And I think that based on their matchup and what they got going today, I don't know if they're going to need to use him as much. I will start Antonio Brown. So when I look at it, it looked like he practiced all day yesterday. So from Adam Schefter's report, and then barring a setback today, so that would be one thing to obviously know. It looks like he's going to go. And I think Curtis Patrick from RotoViz had a really good tweet that I liked, is that he has incentives over the next 2 games. If he hits these things, he makes money. So if Antonio Brown makes 11 more receptions, so he gets $333,000, 281 more yards, he gets $333,000, and 3 more touchdowns, he gets $333,000. And money talks. So I feel like that ankle is going to be all right to roll because Antonio Brown, he needs those incentives. And I'm okay plugging him in. Mike Evans, I'm worried about. If you can pivot to other options, I would be okay there with that one.
It's interesting because Mike Evans is always a threat to score. So so as soon as he steps foot in the end zone, you're gonna be like, oh, mother first. Like I shouldn't. But at the same time, if he doesn't score, you're probably going to be in a boatload of trouble. Another thing you said with the incentives too, Tom Brady's always been a guy who's not shy to talk about wanting to earn his guys their incentives. So it's definitely interesting. It's going to be interesting to see if that plays a role. I hadn't thought of that earlier, but already we are 4 minutes into crunch time and Kevin is dropping bars for everyone. So let's continue with this player news. Carson Wentz cleared to play. That's great news for Michael Pittman. I don't think it changes my opinion on any other guys besides Pittman. How you looking at them?
Yeah, this I see them as like starts. I wouldn't say like they're strong starts or must start guys. Like they're guys that if you have them, probably based on your roster construction. Injuries right now, I don't mind it. I don't hate it there. I look at them just as okay starts. You're looking, hopefully he gets the targets that you'd like to see from there. Wentz, I'd be a little bit more concerned about just in terms of like what is he going to be practiced? Didn't really practice this week, but if he can target Pittman, that'd be fine. But we all know it runs behind Jonathan Taylor, right? Jonathan Taylor's the guy there. So I think when I was looking at Wentz, I had Wentz. He hasn't really put up very good numbers the last 3 weeks. So I'd be a little bit concerned there. But Pittman, I think he's going to get the targets. And if you're going to start him, you start him now.
And if I would love to move Jonathan Taylor up in my rankings because Wentz is back, but he was already RB1. So hard to move him up. But I feel even better about him with Carson Wentz. With backup quarterbacks, everyone kind of always thinks like, okay, now they're going to lean on the running back more. But if you look historically, sometimes that equals more guys in the box and less success for that running back and really more success for like the tight ends and the slot guys who are getting the dump offs. So with that, it's great news for Jonathan Taylor. I think it's great news for Michael Pittman as well. I think Michael Pittman, now he has someone who can get him the ball, and that's very important. I'm not trying to go into a game wanting to trust Michael Pittman with a backup quarterback at all. Speaking of trusting guys, there's a few guys that people were kind of praying weren't going to play this week because their substitute would get all the carries themselves and they become a much better option. One of those guys is James Conner. There's optimism that he'll play, according to Ian Rappaport. It's tough here because you got kind of used to the James Conner RB1 streak that he went on when there was no Chase Edmonds. But now that Chase Edmonds is back and James Conner, we've seen him leave the game. And heel injuries are always when you have a heel injury, it's hard to separate it from a plantar injury, plantar fascia, and that's a lingering injury. So James Conner could get hurt in the middle of the game, but people have been leaning on him. So what would you do with James Conner here?
Yeah, I'm staying away from Conner. I don't necessarily love the matchup. Dallas' defense has been playing better. As a Dallas guy, I think that when you realistically look at what they're going to have to do, they're going to have to use Edmonds, I think, in a different ways. And Edmonds last week had 9 targets. And that's the guy that you want to start just based on the injuries that they had at the receiving position. I think the way they used them, he scored the rushing touchdown. I know Conner was out. I think, like you said, you hit on the head, like heel injuries. Again, running backs, it's quick. All it takes is one hit, and then you're looking at your guy out. Do you want to do that in a championship game? So for me, I think Edmonds has the safer floor. So if you are deciding between those two, because I've had some questions about both of those two, I'd do Edmonds. As far as Conner goes, if I could pivot anywhere, I definitely would pivot because I just don't see him being a viable option because if he scores a touchdown, you're great. That's kind of what you're looking for. So he's a touchdown dependent option. With that heel injury, I'm just staying away in a championship matchup.
So let's talk about some guys that are going to be probably in that pivotable range. Mm-hmm. Are you starting him or Jarrett Patterson?
Oh, that's disgusting. That is just gross. You know what? I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I guess Jarrett Patterson. I would probably pivot to Jarrett because they know he's healthy and he's going to get some volume.
What about a guy like Dare? I'm not even going to attempt the last name. I can't do it. I don't want to be disrespectful.
I would probably start Dare too because he's going to get the volume. And I've been kind of a start Dare guy this week just because of that volume that he's going to get. I just want volume guys in this matchup because if you look at volume, you're going to look at fantasy points, and that leads you to wins. And that's kind of where I'm at on those two guys. Not James Conner. Jordan Howard. Excuse me, Jordan Howard. It was up in the air. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? As of right now, Adam Schefter says that he is expected to play in Week 17 against Washington. And that is horrible news for me if I am a manager of Boston Scott, because Boston Scott looked like a home run smash play this week because, look, the Eagles have been running 30 times a game, and they have not had more passes than rushes since Week 6. So you know this team's going to rush the ball. It's been Miles Sanders. But when it's not Miles Sanders, it's been Jordan Howard one game, and it's been Boston Scott in another game. And people are just forgetting that Kenneth Gainwell also comes in and makes a difference. He comes in and becomes the pass-catching back. He scored 2 touchdowns in a game this year. So with that being said, how are you looking at this backfield? Because there's some value to be had in this Eagles backfield, but what do you do there? Okay, so when I was looking at I wanted to go to real quick to see my rankings this week. But when I'm looking at it, I think that I think Gainwell, you can't comfortably start, in my opinion, just based on kind of how they've been using him and his usage. But I have Jordan Howard as my running back 27 right now, so of this week. So you're looking at kind of a low-end running back too there. And again, I know you like your boy Boston. I like Scott. I do think Scott's going to get some carries though, right? Like we're going to see him and we're going to have there. Scott has my running back 38. So if based on how that backfield shapes out, I would probably go Howard based on the touchdown upside and what they use him in the red zone. Scott he's going to pilfer some targets and he's going to do those things. But again, with Hurts' rushing ability, I think it hurts both of these guys anyway. So give me the guy that has the more of a chance to score touchdowns. And so I'm going to lean with Jordan. It's going to come down to, though, they're in the red zone at the 10 and you're going to see one of those dudes in and you're going to hope that it's your guy because that's what it's going to come to. And then they're going to do an RPO and it's going to be either Hurts or it's going to be Howard or Jordan, and that's just how it works. But give me the upside of Jordan just based on how I have him ranked.
It's crazy because so many of these guys, you kind of want to play Jordan Howard, you kind of want to play Boston Scott, and then what? It's going to be Kenneth Gainwell. It's going to be a Kenneth Gainwell day. That's just how it goes, right? So we got some start-sit questions, and I want to get into these because these are the most important. This is the most important part. This is why we do crunch time, to get these start-sit questions in. So our first start-sit question is on YouTube. It's from Psych Ward. By the way, if you are watching this on Twitter, we cannot see your questions from Twitter. We could see it on the app and we could see it on YouTube. So please log in on those places. And a little bit of a hack on the free Fantasy Football by BRoto app. If you go and watch it in the app, you can kind of flip it up and have it in a little box in the corner while you do other things on your phone. You can't do that with YouTube unless you pay. So a little hack there that we give you if you're watching through the app. All right. So Matt Ward, one of the GOATs out here. He's usually the one answering, but he needs our expertise. Always giving the great details. I gotta love Matt's questions. 1 QB, half PPR, 1 point PPR for tight end. So tight end premium. Who to start? AJ Green, Devin Singletary, James Conner, Christian Kirk, Dalton Schultz. You got. We're starting 2. All right. So I have my inkling already. I think that one of the guys that I'm going with for sure is Devin Singletary of this list. How do you feel about that?
Can you believe we're talking about Devin Singletary starting? Devin, you're my guy. I've loved you, but you kill me. But he's getting the targets now. So, like, realistically, what you've seen in the passing game, especially in a half PPR and 1 PPR thing, when you're looking at that for tight end premium, I don't mind Devin in this role. I actually would probably start 2 different guys, but I'm interested to see who your second guy is.
For me, because it's tight end premium, I think I'll lean Dalton Schultz because of that upside. For me, James Conner, I'm not as low on James Conner as you are. I think that James Conner, if he's playing, is a playable asset. I think that he's gotten so many looks in the red zone that it's almost a guarantee that he's going to get a look in the red zone and convert when he plays, because that's how it's been. So if he's getting that touchdown, I want that touchdown. Dalton Schultz, he has so many weapons around him. He's had dud games, so it's concerning. So it's between those 2 guys. Kirk, I can't trust in my opinion. AJ Green is kaput in my opinion. So for me, it's between Schultz and Conner, and I'm leaning Schultz. How do you feel?
Yeah, so what I would say is you go Schultz, tight end premium for sure. And based on, I know that you said he has some kaput games. Trust me, I know I've watched them all. But what I would say is when all of his weapons are out there, they tend to lean on him a little bit more, and he's super efficient. And when you're looking at what he's done the last 2 weeks, he's had 16 catches on 17 targets with everybody out there. And Dak looks his way, and he's put up 20 points in PPR formats the last 2 weeks. I don't see that stopping. He scored a touchdown the last 2 weeks. I love that, what he's been able to do, especially in an offense with those weapons around him. And in a tight end premium, I think this is an easy pick. I would say the other guy, which you hurt me when you said this, but Christian Kirk, baby. I'm on the Kirk train. Like I'm going to go with Kirk on this on just because he is the garbage time PPR leader right now. Like when you're looking at him, what they do down the stretch, they just target him down the stretch. He had 9 targets last week, and I swear to God, like 7 of them came in the last 4th quarter there. He had 7 catches. Now he's he hasn't been very efficient with those targets, and you've seen him score a touchdown the last, probably 1 in the last, I want to say 8 weeks. So yeah, it's a little bit of a risk there. I do think that he's going to get the targets down the stretch. And so I would go there or Singletary. So for your point, I think those 2 guys, and then Schultz.
I think it's just the downside of Christian Kirk scares me to no end. Yeah. Like even with all that peppering that you talked about last week, he only ended as wide receiver 38, but he was wide receiver 5 the week before, but then the week before wide receiver 43. So he has this giant ceiling without DeAndre Hopkins, but he also has this massive floor. So I think that the question is like team construct as well. That's something that I don't think we talk about enough as fantasy analysts in general, just in the conversation, is how is your team constructed? Do you need a blow-up game? Are you the underdog, and do you need someone to blow up? Then maybe you lean Christian Kirk. But are you in a situation where you're the favorite and a dud will kill you? Then maybe you go Dalton Schultz or Devin Singletary instead. So that's that. It really depends on your team makeup. All right, let's get to the second one. Eduardo Moran, says, Start Alvin Kamara again in fall, or give the opportunity to DeAndre Swift, who comes back this week? This is an interesting question because the book says start your studs. So my initial thought is start Kamara. The question is, though, there's no loyalty in fantasy football. There's no loyalty when it comes to championships, and DeAndre Swift isn't a good matchup. If you go to BrotoFantasy.com, you'll see one of our great writers, Nick. He in the sleepers and bust articles named DeAndre Swift as his sleeper this week in a very, very good matchup. So, I mean, I'm going to say start Kamara. I can't trust a guy like DeAndre Swift, especially when a guy like DeAndre Swift comes off an injury. The explosive type players, you see them kind of not do great in their first game back. They usually take a couple games to get going again. You don't have a couple games to wait. I think I'm going to lean Kamara. How you feeling, Kevin?
I agree. I'm a Swift guy, but I agree on this. Like, Kamara is my running back 5 this week. You cannot sit your running back 5, like in terms of my own rankings. And Swift's to me at 13. So it's not as crazy as it seems to probably plug in Swift. I think game script really matters in this game and kind of how that game goes. Carolina's not a great team, but it looks like they're going to kind of alternate, start Darnold today. I would definitely go with Kamara because he's going to get the usage. So if you're looking at that, Swift still has, we have Reynolds there, we have Jamal Williams there. Like, we have guys that are going to take away some of that usage with them. The injury concerns coming off of it. I think you have to plug in Kamara based on just who he is and based on also, like, I think he has a great matchup as well, and he's going to get the volume. But again, like we talked about, it's not this isn't a like crazy question, especially with the way Kamara's played. I think he's had 11 total PPR points the last 2 weeks. Hasn't looked amazing behind that offensive line. We know the limitations of the quarterback, but with all that said, you don't sit Alvin Kamara in the championship game because I think he's going to get the usage.
Is he going to get 6 touchdowns for you like he did last year?
Probably not.
Probably not.
I think you're happy with 15 PPR points, probably. I mean, you'd be really happy with over 20, but 15 to 20 would help you, especially in this format.
Yeah, for sure. And you just can't. It's bad fantasy karma if you sit Kamara. Like, it's almost like you're testing the fantasy gods to make you lose. Let's go to our next question. So this one's a 2-part question. And I think we should talk about it in 2 parts because it's a little bit of a conversation. Should I sit Justin Jefferson this week? His QB literally has played one full game his whole 5-year career and threw 2 picks and less than 130 yards. Super cold. How do I trust JJ? My bench options are, and we'll get to the bench options in just a second. But I want to talk about Justin Jefferson as a whole because without Kirk Cousins, and this is going to be a super cold game. As of right now, the game time temperature is at less than 5 degrees. When you're talking about less than 5 degrees out, and I have the stat here, but I lost it for a second. I'm going to get it in a second. There you go. Less than 5 degrees out, according to Paul Chacharin, QBs in the last 8 years have averaged 16 completions, 160 yards, and 0.3 touchdowns. And that's not a guy making a start in Sean Mannion, who you haven't heard of since you played with him on Madden with the Rams and 5 years ago. So how are you looking at Justin Jefferson this week?
So we kind of had a pre-talk about this before. I have Jefferson in the league, and I'm starting him because he's Justin Jefferson. And when you look at I know it's cold. I mean, shit, it's California. It's 40 degrees right now. I'm freezing my butt off. I don't know what it'd be like playing at 5 degrees, but I think he's a wide receiver 3 in there. And so based on your options and where you have, I still think that Jefferson is a low end wide receiver 1 this week. I know Thielen's out, so you're going to get the targets there. I know that his quarterback is bad, man. It is not good. But if you look at the perspective of can he be quarterback proof? I think he can be. And they're going to target him. So I do think he's going to get the targets. So we're going to be looking at targets that we're going to have it. Now, can he be efficient with those targets? I think that's the biggest question mark. But you can't sit Justin Jefferson. I'm not sitting Justin Jefferson. I will go down with Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I agree. Especially because with the guys that he's about to say, Zach Ertz, Brandon Ayuk, Jarrett Patterson, or James Conner, I'm gonna go with JJ over those guys for sure.
The only guy I would say that stands out in that group is Ayuk, but you're looking at Lance's first start in the last, 10 weeks, whatever it is. As big of a Lance guy I am, I think he's going to definitely be on the ground more. So I don't know if the targets are necessarily going to be there for Ayuk. And so I would still go with Jefferson because Jefferson's the clear guy on that team, where Ayuk is probably the third option and then maybe the fourth behind Lance's ability to run. So give me the upside with Jefferson.
We're on the same page. Jefferson is the play for us. Like, guys, you know what? I feel like I should mention this. That usually it's start your studs. I feel like there's less studs this year than usual. Is that just me?
Yeah, I would say there's less studs, a lot more injuries because of the week 17 stuff. And I think there's been a lot of more. I think that you can maneuver a little bit more, but also our studs just aren't performing either. So like when you're looking at start your studs, they're just not also performing. So there's a lot been going on this season. It's been a long ass season. I'm gonna be honest. Like someone put it out there today, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm used to by this time it's over, and I can kind of just settle down for a little while, but I can't do that.
It sucked because I was actually talking about it with Jason. Jason, co-host Jason, if you guys don't already know, he booked a vacation however long ago to Arizona. He's out there right now, and he booked it kind of like with the thought of, all right, fantasy football's over after Christmas. And I always do a live show like this for championship week, and it's always like right around Christmas time. And now something seems off. It definitely seems off for sure. Getting used to this, but speaking of getting used to this, here's what we're talking about. Like, there's a couple guys that are big time contributors that are out this week. Mike Gamage says, my quarterbacks are Lamar Jackson and Kirk Cousins. Who do I fire up instead? Tyler Huntley or Trey Lance? This is one of the harder questions that we're going to face today. I feel like I'm higher in terms of rankings on Trey Lance because of his matchup against Houston. I'm higher on Tyler Huntley because I've seen him do it before. Right now, I'm going to lean Trey Lance because of that Houston matchup. I think that they're going to put him in a situation to succeed. The 49ers are incredibly healthy, which they were not last time Trey Lance took the ball. So I think that Trey Lance in this matchup is someone that I'm feeling confident leaning on. How do you feel?
Yeah, Lance right now is my QB 11. Huntley's my QB 16, but it's just based on his matchup. And I think that with his upside there against Houston, that's where I would lean, especially with his rushing upside. Huntley's okay, but again, the Rams are a legitimate defense, and when you're looking at what the Rams have been able to do this year, I'd be very. They're going to get him in uncomfortable spots. Not having a running game definitely hurts Baltimore. So I can see some garbage fantasy points for Huntley. So maybe that's where he kind of can win you the week at the end of the game. But I still think Lance preserves the best option. And there's a realistic chance, that Lance scores 2 rushing touchdowns this week.
I think I agree with you. I think there's a realistic chance at that. There is one thing I do want to point out though. On the Fantasy Football by BRoto app, there is our exclusive stat, defensive points over average, which adjusts fantasy points to just the matchups that they have played. So for example, if someone plays Travis Kelce and gives up 15 points, that doesn't count as hard against the rankings as if you give up 15 points to, Ryan Griffin, right? Yeah. So the Rams right now, they're very good against the pass, but against the quarterback rushing, they give up 86% more points. They're the 5th best matchup for rushing quarterbacks. And you have a guy in Tyler Huntley who's going to run the rock. And the Rams are a run funnel defense. They have been all year. So there is something to be said about Tyler Huntley as well. I don't dislike Tyler Huntley, but if you're making this choice, I definitely lean towards Trey Lance in this game. All right, let's go to the next question. And remember, the crunch time guarantee, we're going to get to every single question. So make sure you post them up. And even if we take a little while, I know we got a bunch of questions piling up. We'll try and get to all of them as soon as we can. All right, Boyd says, what up, Boyd? Kendrick Bourne or Dare? PPR. Give me the juice. I'm going to go Dare. Just it's PPR, more guaranteed receptions in my opinion. How do you feel?
Yeah, Dare for me just because of volume. Kendrick Bourne, I don't want to. I'm worried about that offense. I'm going to stay away from that offense.
Yeah, so I think that one's one of the easier ones. I think Dare takes the cake on that one. Although Kendrick Bourne is Kendrick Bourne, he could pop off for one, but I don't think you're taking that chance in championship week. Benjamin Hare says, "Hey boys, Huntley or Mac Jones? Half-point PPR, 6-point QB touchdown." Oh, this is 6 point always 6-point QB touchdown always throws a wrench in the plans in terms of that, because it's a big difference. And Mac Jones does get a incredible matchup in Jacksonville. I talked about Tyler Huntley before and how he will probably have an opportunity to run on the Rams. For me, I'm leaning Tyler Huntley in this one. I have Tyler Huntley as my QB 15. But I'm pretty high on Mac Jones. Mac Jones as my QB 20. I think he's startable in super flex leagues, and if you're having 6-point touchdowns thrown, then he's definitely moves up in those rankings. But I think I'm still leaning Huntley because of all the reasons we listed just a moment ago. How are you feeling about that, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, Mac's my QB 16, so I'm a little higher on him just based on that matchup that you have. But Huntley just is rushing upside in his garbage time points. I do think that you're going to be looking at a better probably production from him there. So I would go Huntley on this one, but it is close, like you said, with a 6-point passing touchdown. But give me Huntley in this matchup. Mac is so weird because you can literally have Mac start him and he'll get you 10 points because maybe they rush all over Jacksonville, which we've seen teams do. And then you're looking there sitting there with like 10 points for your quarterback. That's not going to win you a week. So I would go Huntley based on upside and based on that rushing side.
Yeah, you can't trust Bill Belichick.
No,
I am convinced that Bill Belichick sold his soul at some point during the time, and he's just like a soulless guy. He made a deal with the devil, and he just doesn't have emotion. I think that's what we're. So don't trust that guy. Don't trust that guy, right? Michael. Oh, what up, Mike? How you doing? Michael moving into a new apartment today. That's why he's not with us. So congratulations, Michael, for moving into your new apartment. Enjoying the show, fellas. I am starting Huntley over Russ and Moreau over Pitts in the same league, shooting for upside. What say you guys? Ooh, Michael going for it. I'm gonna defer to you on this one to go first because I gotta think it over a little bit.
I would probably do the opposite of both those things, to be honest with you. I still like Russ in this matchup that he has. I still think, when I'm looking at Russ, he's my QB 13. Again, it's very close with Huntley right now, but playing Detroit, I think he can score those touchdowns. I think he can get in the end zone quick. You saw it last week. He kind of had a better game than you looking there. And I'm still going Pitts. I can't start Moreau over Pitts. I still think Pitts is going to get targets today. And with his upside, his talent, give me Pitts.
So I have the same for the quarterback. Russell Wilson has been looking better each week coming back from the injury, which is all you could really ask for. I have them ranked very close to where you have them ranked. I have Russ as my my QB 12, excuse me. And I have Huntley as my QB 15. So I'm leaning Russell there. The tight end is a little closer to me because Kyle Pitts, yes, is the more talented player. There's no doubt about it. But when we're talking about Buffalo, the Buffalo Bills on the year are the 30th ranked matchup against tight ends. So they are the third hardest matchup for tight ends. They're giving up only 7.1 points to the tight end a week. That's minus 38% under the average that other people give to the players that they've played. On the other side, you have probably the best tight end matchup of the season in the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts have been they've been bleeding points to the tight end. They've given up 15.5 points per game to the tight end. That's 46.6% over average. They are now the third. They've been a little better. They were the first for a very long time, but still a very plus matchup. And teams have been really keying in on Hunter Renfrow and shutting him down. So they're going to have to go somewhere. And if the defense for the Colts is soft at that position, at the tight end position, then they're going to exploit that. And I think that Foster Moreau has shown you, although he has had a bad couple games, he's shown you the upside in the past when Darren Waller is out. So for me, I'm still going to run with Russ, but I'm not mad at you for going Moreau over Pitts. Like I think that one's all right. Okay. With that being said, yeah, no problem. Boyd says Trey Lance, BRoto sleeper of the week, of course. All right, let's see. Charles Kearney, morning, boys. Got a few toughies this week. Jarvis or Gabe Davis, PPR. Blah, gross. But shout out to you for being a quality manager to get to a point in the season where you're still going over this question and you're here and you're in a championship week. That's shout out to you as a manager. So with that being said, what do you think, Jarvis or Gabe Davis?
Oh, yeah. So this is all based on like when you're looking at Gabe and Beasley, they're all coming back. You're going to see where the target's at with Emmanuel, those other guys there. I think I leave Jarvis in this. He had 7 targets last week. He had 10 against Baltimore when he played. I'm going to lean, as much as I don't like the idea of going with Jarvis, especially because Cleveland's just been bad and Baker's been bad. He's going to get the targets. And so I realistically think you can get something like, he's had 27 targets the last 3 games he's played. I don't know where Gabe Davis's targets are going to come from. They might be there or they might not. So for me, give me the safer floor, which I think is Landry.
I like Gabe Davis. We're going to disagree on this one. I think that Gabe Davis, although he was going to possibly miss, he's been the end zone target over the last few weeks. He's kind of taken Dawson Knox out of that role, and he's been getting those end zone targets. I want those end zone targets against the Falcons. It's a fantastic matchup against the Falcons. The Falcons, they are in the playoff race, but they're treating it like they're not. They're resting their veterans. You see Cordarrelle Patterson not getting that much burn. In fact, I was hoping about some Cordarrelle Patterson question, because Cordarrelle's a big bust for me. I have him about 20 spots under consensus this week. I think that he's not going to do much in this game, despite the big matchup. The Falcons have been just great for wide receivers. They're giving up, they're the second best matchup, giving up 22.5% points over average, allowing 33 points to the receiver per game. Cole Beasley, he's the one that usually gets his targets taken away when Dawson Knox is on the field. You saw the Emmanuel Sanders role that Gabriel Davis is now filling, now that Emmanuel Sanders has had his injury woes and his age woes. Gabriel Davis is filling that role very much like Emmanuel Sanders. So for me, looking at Gabriel Davis now, it's like looking at Emmanuel Sanders in week 6, week 7, when it comes to Dawson Knox is on the field, Cole Beasley's on the field, Stephon Diggs is on the field. So I'm going with Gabriel Davis on this one. I think that this is a tough one. It's a close one, but I think that Gabe Davis is where I'm leaning.
Yeah, if Sanders is out, I will say if we know, because I just looked it up and it still hasn't come out yet. If Sanders is out, I would go Gabe. But if Sanders is there, then I'm going to stay with Jarvis.
Okay, great. No dumb questions. You got 2 teachers here. You got 2 guys who educate the youth for a living. No dumb questions. That's one of the mottos, man. All right, so Alejandro, never a dumb question. Just need to hear from y'all. Which QB do I start? Kyler, Lance, or Taysom Hill? Definitely not a tough question. I think it's a harder question than you even think it is. I'm very, very high. I'm extraordinarily high on Trey Lance this week. I have him listed as my quarterback 9 right now. I'm also very high on Taysom Hill. I have him as my quarterback 6 right now. I think there's no reason to think that Taysom Hill doesn't run all over the place. I'm also high on Kyler Murray. I have him as my quarterback 9. So I have them all kind of in the same spot. According to my rankings, I would go Taysom Hill here, but I think that it's all about your matchup. I think it's all about, do you need an explosion? If you need an explosion, Taysom Hill, Trey Lance, those guys have high ceilings. Do you need safety? Kyler Murray is probably going to be called on against Dallas, but Dallas has been good against the quarterback. For me, because it's championship week, even though I have Taysom Hill and Trey Lance above Kyler Murray, I'm playing Kyler Murray because it's play your guys. So that might seem counterintuitive, but I'm playing Kyler Murray if you have him over the 2 guys that I think that might have a better week, though. How are you feeling about that, Kevin?
Yeah, this is a very tough question. So Alejandro, just know, like, this is close. And I think Dallas' defense is playing better. And I do think that they can be ball hawks and stuff, but they do give up big plays. And I think Kyler Murray can take advantage of that. So I'm going to go up. I'm going to pick Murray in this instance. I would rank him Murray, Hill, and Lance probably. That's kind of, but they're very close in terms of where you go, just because I think Hill will be profiled and he'll actually get that in that offense. Whereas Lance, I love Lance. But Shanahan, I don't trust Shanahan at all. Like, just with the way how he's using him, his scheme, game plan, what is he going to see? We know that Hill will be all over that game plan because we know Sean Payton loves him. I still think you lean Kyler, though, based on, like you talked about, matchup championship, where he's projected at right now. He's still projected 21 points per game, according to Fantasy Pro. So I would stay with Kyler, knowing that he's going to be safe. He's a safer option here.
Right. And I think it's hard to stop. It's hard to not start Kyler. I know he's had some down games, but he's coming off a big one, and they need a win in the worst way. And so, and they're playing a good team. They've taken some bad losses to some bad teams. So maybe they kind of get up for this one. Sometimes when you're playing a really great team, the opposite of what you think, like if they're a great defense, the opposite of what you think is going to happens when you have a guy like Kyler Murray, because he must put up those points and he's good enough to do that. So I'm going with Kyler Murray. All right, let's go with Hanson De La Garza says, "What's up, guys? Who'd you start at running back? Sony Michel or DeAndre Swift? Full PPR." This is another good question. I'm going Sony Michel, although I am a little nervous about Sony Michel's upside in this matchup against Baltimore. Baltimore has been very good against the running back, and they've been really, really bad against the wide receivers. So I really think this is going to be a Rams wide receiver game. But with that being said, I just don't know if I can trust DeAndre Swift to be great. And in order to start him over Sony Michel, I need him to be great. So I'm going to start Sony Michel on this one. How do you feel?
Yeah, Sony for me just because of volume, like I talked about. It's just based on volume, guys, and that's what I'm going to go with because I don't know what DeAndre Swift's volume going to be, and is that a risk you're going to take week 17? Sorry, I went old school right there. Week 17, I think when you look at what he's been able to put up, you've seen him basically have almost 80 attempts, 80 carries the last 4 games, and then you see the touchdowns. He's not going to get the receptions, even though he did get 4 targets last week. I think Sony's in line. He's going to be the guy, so I'm going to go with Sony in this matchup.
All right. Both of us agree with Sony. Next question. My running back situation in one championship matchup is kind of ugly. I'm between Saquon and D. Will. I'm assuming that is Chiefs running back, as my RB2. So Daryl Williams or what's the second? Or Saquon Barkley.
Saquon Barkley.
I lean Daryl Williams in this. I know it's hard because Saquon Barkley has the name, but besides the name, Saquon has not been good. He's going to Chicago where he hurt his ACL. They've been a good run defense. The Giants that offense is just an absolute sham. They're going to miss Kadarius Toney now. He's out for the game. The quarterback situation's ugly. The offensive line situation's ugly. That's just an ugly offense. And when it comes down to it, I don't want a part of an ugly offense, no matter how good the player is, especially if the player is hobbled. So Daryl Williams, I'm very high on this week. I think he's the RB15. Don't forget what Daryl Williams did when he was the lone back in that backfield. Yes, Derek Gore had that one drive that was incredible, but people are kind of giving Derek Gore a little bit too much credit, like he's going to get a lot of the carries. I think Gore's going to be the spellback to Daryl Williams, who will be a main target in the passing game as well, as he always is. So I think Daryl Williams continues that streak of good outcomes without CEH. How are you feeling about this one?
No, I'm going to go Daryl too, and it's not based on talent because we know Barkley's talented. It's just based on that offense is a mess. I don't know if you guys, the offense is a mess. We talked about it on here, but when CH was out, so in half PPR, here's what Daryl was able to put up when he was gone there for those 5 games. He had 244 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. He had also 24 receptions, 226 yards, and a receiving touchdown. He averaged 15.4 fantasy points. So if you're looking at it from that perspective, if you can get 15 points out of your running back too, I think that's a very solid play.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that was basically a really concise way to saying like start Daryl Williams in most of your matchups. I think that when you have a guy who's going to get volume like that in a Kansas City offense, in a hot Kansas City offense, you got to take that. Alejandro says, or Huntley to put up to his quarterback. I think we talked about Huntley. I think Kyler still gets that start over Huntley. All right. Wide receiver 3, DJ Moore, Russell Gage, Brandon Ayuk, or Gabriel Davis. This one's a tough one. In terms of you looking at these players and you're like, who's the better player? Who's the best player? The answer is clear. But who's the best play this week is the question. We've already talked about why I like Gabe Davis in this game. Kevin, you've mentioned Brandon Ayuk and why you like him in this game. I am down on DJ Moore with when you have 3 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks, as they say. Russell Gage has been up and down, so he's hard to trust in a championship game. This one's a tough one. How are you leading?
For me personally, because Sam Darnold is starting, I'm going to go DJ Moore, because when DJ had good games, it was when Darnold was going to pepper him with targets. I still think they're wide receiver 3 options. I think all of these guys are wide receiver 3 options. So you're looking for, hey, who could have that breakout game? But man, you look at the targets that Moore has gotten, he's had them the last 4 games, here's his targets: 10, 10, 11, and 12. He just hasn't been efficient with the targets. And so I think that efficiency will come with Darnold. I am clearly a Darnold truther. I was, and now I'm not. Darnold broke my heart. But I will say, when you looked at his first 4 weeks that he had Darnold there, I mean, he was a wide receiver 1. So I do think with Darnold back, I think they're going to pepper him. I think he's got a good matchup, a 4-star matchup against New Orleans. So I'm going to go with the upside play here. Again, if this is PPR, I still think DJ Moore is a play just because of the targets and the usage he's going to get, especially Darnold. I think Darnold changes the game a little bit.
As a fellow Sam Darnold truther, I will tell you this. Don't quit just yet, because he was hurt. He got hurt.
I know.
And it made a big difference in his play. So if he's healthy, yeah, I agree. I'm going with DJ Moore. I actually have DJ Moore ranked as a low-end wide receiver 2 this week. I think he's going to have a bigger week than he has in the past. I would rank it as Moore, Davis, Ayuk, Gage, personally. But I'm going to go with DJ Moore in that wide receiver 3 slot, just for all the reasons Kevin said. Darnold back, that's when he put up his best games. And yeah, I think that's the play. Let's go on to the next one. Gobble Lobster says Dare, Jeff Wilson, Gaskin, or Jamal Williams. This is the clear option, was Jeff Wilson before it was been said Elijah Mitchell's going to play. Elijah Mitchell is going to play. So if you are an Elijah Mitchell manager, congratulations on that one. That's a big, big difference. I lean Dare if it's PPR in this game. I lean Dare either way.
Yeah.
This is an ugly one, but I'm going to go with the guaranteed work when it comes to a group like this.
Yeah, I think too, I've been saying it a lot, but Lance is going to limit a lot of these running backs, guys. So please, just understand, I would not touch Wilson right now unless he scores a touchdown. That's just really the only upside that you have based on Lance's ability to run, Mitchell coming back and everything there. I'm going Dare because those other guys just make me sick. I just don't think you can put those guys out there on your roster. Volume. I do think Dare is kind of I don't want to say he's a time bomb. You got to hope that he gets there, but he's going to get the usage. There's no one else on that roster that's going to get that usage. So I'm going to go Dare here, but be careful with your running back spots, especially for the Niners.
What is this, Johnny? What is this? What is this fake news? D-Hop is not back. You made me literally have a panic attack for a minute there. You like, what's going on? This is fake news. This is a fake news free zone here. All right. Jake from IT is next. He says, need a sanity check with the QB situation in Minnesota. Am I crazy for benching Jeff? I don't think you're crazy if it's for the right guy, but there's not many people out there I would bench him for. I'm just not going to do it.
Nope.
How about it? I'd rather be the guy who loses playing Justin Jefferson than who wins. No, that's the wrong way to say it. I would rather lose playing Justin Jefferson than lose because I didn't play Justin Jefferson, and that was the reason why I lost. Like that would eat at my conscience for the entire season, the entire offseason. So don't do it. Next, wide receiver question: half PPR. Amari Cooper or DJ Moore? So we just talked about the upside of DJ Moore. Thank you, Charles Kearney, for the question. And now you're putting him up against Amari Cooper. How are you feeling about that, Kev?
Yeah, I think just based on the offense and the talent level, you got to go Coop, especially because he had 11 targets last week. He looked really good against Washington. I think he's going to score touchdowns. He's been there. I know that my buddy calls him the fantasy locust, and I always laugh because he doesn't show up in big games. And so I think that when you're looking at him from that perspective, I think you could be a little worried, but I do think this is going to be a shootout. So based on volume in there, I love Moore, but I think that Cooper scores, and I think that's going to separate him.
I agree. I like Cooper in this one. The Cardinals have also been a surprisingly great matchup for wide receivers this year. I know their defense overall has been great, but wide receivers have been able to score against them. 34.4 points allowed per game. That's 14.6% over average. That makes them the 5th best wide receiver matchup according to our exclusive stat, defensive points over average, on the Fantasy Football by BRoto app. So if you don't have that already, go download that. It is absolutely free right now for a limited time, but we're both going to swing Amari here and go with him. Next, Phil119 says, hello, guys. Saquon gives me a little comfort today in starting him. Would you play Dare or Booker in his place? Thank you. Gives me a little do you mean discomfort?
Probably discomfort.
Yeah, probably discomfort. I'm going to go with Saquon over those two guys, personally.
Yeah, I'm going to go Saquon as well. Dare would be the only guy I would maybe think about, but I think that based on talent level, I would go Barkley and just hope that he scores. Like, you're probably looking at 12 carries, 50 yards. Does he score a touchdown? I think that's the realistic thing with Barkley.
All right, let's go to our next question. What's up, fellas? Lance or Hill, 6-point touchdowns. Oh, man. Another one. I have them back-to-back in my rankings. I guess Taysom Hill is more likely to throw a touchdown than Trey Lance is, but I can't really say for sure. This is a tough one. This is a tough one. How are you leaning?
I'm going to lean with my guy Lance. I'm going to go Lance on this one just because I think he has better upside. I do think that they're going to use him involved, and I'm just a big believer in Lance right now. But yeah, they're back-to-back in my rankings as well. But I'm going to go Lance just because of my faith in Lance as a player, and I do think that he can score a couple rushing touchdowns.
Love it. Yeah, I think that I'm going to go with that too, since that's I don't know, man. That's a tough one. I'm a Taysom Hill believer as well. That's a tough one. I think I'm going to just I can't even say it. I can't say it. I think Taysom. Maybe Taysom. All right, Johnny, without spreading fake news around, Chicago D or Dolphins D? A defensive question. Let me go to the rankings here to see where my defenses are at. Miami's D has been absolutely on fire, so I would not blame you for starting Miami's D. Miami's D is at Tennessee. The Chicago Bears are versus the Giants at home. Based on matchup, I have the Bears D ranked higher. I would start the Bears D against the Giants this week. How are you feeling about it?
I think so I was looking at my ranking. I mean, I have the Bears at defense ranking number 5 right now. So if I'm going to look at that, I think I got to go there just based on the upside. I do think that they can kind of create some turnovers there. Dolphins have been on fire too, but I have the Dolphins a little bit down. Tennessee is not an amazing matchup for them, and I do think that he gets scored on a little bit. So I'm going to go Chicago pretty easily here.
The thing about Tennessee is that the way you score points in defense is not by giving up the least amount of points. It's by turnovers. Yeah. It's by sacks. So when you're talking about a very competent quarterback in Ryan Tannehill, getting his guy AJ Brown back, that's a way more competent offense than the Giants are. So I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears kind of having a more of an opportunity to cause havoc against the Giants because they're the bigger upside. So I'm gonna lean the Bears defense on that one. All right. Mike, again, one more for you. Half PPR, pick 3. Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery, Elijah Penny, Eli Mitchell, or Daryl Williams. Okay, Bomb Squad. Jeez. Demont Penny Mitchell. I am leaning right off the bat. How you feeling, Kevin?
I would go this is tough with Mitchell's injury. I would probably go Demont. I would actually go probably Demont, Daryl, and Jacobs. So I'm completely different than you. So I'd probably go Demont. I think Daryl's going to have that eyes upside like we talked about with 15 points PPR or half PPR in the last 5 games without CH. And I'm actually a Jacobs guy. So I think Jacobs could have a running back 2 day today.
I think Josh Jacobs does have the ability to have a running back 2 game today. I think that one of the reasons why I'm not starting Jacobs is because of how high I am on Rashad Penny. This might be a hottish take, but Rashad Penny is my RB7 this week. He's been the main beneficiary of every single carry that is available unless he's hurt. There is a chance that he gets hurt, and that's always the chance you're taking with Rashad Penny. But I'm not going to bank on that because it's just such an out there thing that you can't predict. I'm more banking on the fact that he gets a Detroit defense who the Detroit offense is not going to have their starting quarterback. Right now, Jared Goff, officially doubtful, not said to be out of the game yet, but when you got a doubtful tag, you're basically going to be out of the game. Did you hear anything about Goff being officially out of the game? Am I behind?
I haven't seen anything. Yeah, I can look.
Yeah. I mean, thank you. He's listed as doubtful. So I'm assuming he's not going to be in the game. The Lions defense has been atrocious against running backs. They are the third best matchups in points over average. Rashad Penny does have pass catching in his arsenal, so that's good, but he's more of a rusher. They're the fourth best matchup against rushers, at averaging 35.7 more points on the ground. The Lions have just been the gift that keeps on giving, and this could be a situation where the Mariners, the Seahawks are kind of running out clock, not because I think they're such a better team than the Lions that they're going to be blowing them out, but more that the Lions are going to be clearly inept on offense when they're on the field without their big guns, without their big gun, even though Goff is more like a water gun, without their big gun on the field. So I think that Penny has incredible upside, and I'm starting him. I think for me, it's Demont's my RB4 too, so I'm really high on Demont. So it's between Mitchell and Daryl Williams, and I think that one you got to go with your gut. For me, I don't have no problem moving Elijah Mitchell right now. He's my RB11. I have no problem moving him back into RB1 category. If they say he's going to play, I assume he's going to get all the carries because that's what Shanahan does. So, I mean, besides the ones going to Debo, of course. So in that matchup against Houston, I'm going to try and take advantage of that matchup. That's why I'm leaning with those three guys. But they're definitely some good choices to pick from there, Michael. Well done, sir. Well done. Alejandro again says full PPR, Knox or Ertz. This one's a tough one. This one, tight ends after the top 6 tight ends are mostly a crapshoot, to put it gently. Eileen Dawson Knox. How do you feel?
Yeah. Eileen Knox, just because I think he can score the touchdowns. I don't know if Ertz is going to get in there. We saw Ertz almost have a touchdown, and he does get targeted in the red zone, but where is that going to come from? So I think that I would go Knox just based on the last couple of games that we've seen, and I think that there is some upside play with there, and you realistically could get 2 touchdowns from Knox. Where Ertz, I think that you're kind of a safer play, to be honest. I have him ranked at 5 and 7, so they're very close, but I'm going to go Knox touchdown upside, especially the last couple of games that we've seen them play.
A little bit of a surprising, both mid-range matchups, but a little bit of a surprise. The Falcons actually are the better matchup the Cowboys are the better matchup for tight ends. So The Falcons have been a little more successful against guarding the tight end. It's really just going to be who ends up catching the touchdown of those two. So with that one, I'll say this. As much as I want you to take our advice, when it's decisions like Knox or Ertz, go with the guy that your gut tells you to go with, because that's how you're going to be able to live with yourself if you lose or win. So when it's tight like that. But I would go with Knox. Hey, yo, guys, AJ Dillon, Swift, Gordon, Jeff Wilson, or Boston Scott. Pick one. Half PPR. I'm going to go DeAndre Swift here because of the upside. Jeff Wilson's out. Boston Scott, if Jordan Howard, I would probably go Boston Scott if Jordan Howard wasn't playing. But for me, Boston Scott's out. AJ Dillon's out. He's splitting time. That leaves Gordon out because he's splitting time. He kind of busted. He's looking every bit his age lately. The past few games, it's really been the Javonte show. So I'm going to go with DeAndre Swift. How you feel, Kev?
I think if you look at this question, you're looking at running backs, you look at okay, who's going to get the most volume out of all these guys? And AJ Dillon's not going to get more volume than Aaron. I know he has those, they basically use him in different spots, but I don't trust that. Gordon, like you mentioned with Javonte, is there. Wilson, who knows what's going to happen? I think a lot of things like we've been talking about with Lance limits its upside, and you got Mitchell being there. Scott, again, like we mentioned, I think Howard's going to eat into that. Swift, though, if he's healthy, I mean, realistically, you're looking at it, he'll get more volume than these guys. So if we're looking at our start sits with Swift, like we've talked about, he's still my running back 18. He's still over these guys, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. So we're on the same page when it comes to this. We would start DeAndre Swift. I think the only guy I'd really consider starting over him is Melvin Gordon. But even then, I'm starting DeAndre Swift. Jason says Jared Patterson, Boston Scott, Kendrick Bourne, start 2, half PPR. I'm going up against Michael, so quit helping him. And one of the quintessential, the way these two communicate with each other. Michael responds with, Jason says start 2 and name 3 guys who are going to combine for 8 points and thinks he's going to beat me. But if you had to go, I think that Jason, I know Michael's been asking us, he has a bomb squad. So for you, you're going to have to go upside. I think Jared Patterson and Boston Scott is where I'm leaning. How about you, Kevin?
Yeah, I'd probably go Boston Scott and maybe Bourne, just because we mentioned maybe Bourne having those games, like maybe he'll get the upside there. It really depends on Jacoby. So all I've seen is he out for sure. I looked I looked and it said he was a question mark.
Yeah, still questionable according to NBC Sports Edge. Roto World, really. Roto World in our hearts.
Yeah, Roto World. What I would say is if he's still questionable and if he doesn't play, I might go Bourne here, just because of the upside of the volume. And if he, like you mentioned, if Michael has a good squad, then I probably would go Bourne.
All right. Excuse me. Jake from IT. And don't worry, guys, we're going to get to every single question. I don't want to rush them because we want to give you good analysis, but also we're going to get to every single question. So stay tight. Jake from IT. Need to pick 2 running backs and a flex. Okay, here we go. Running backs. Eckler, Swift, Rojo, or Michelle. Then for flex, we also have Justin Jefferson and Chase in the mix. Wide receiver are Kupp and Adams. BRoto has set me up with so many good options. Well, it's an embarrassment of riches. Jake from IT, a loyal listener. We appreciate you, Jake. All right. Whew. This one's a tough one. See, this is one of the times where I think that benching Justin Jefferson is going to be an option.
Yeah.
For me, I'm super high on Rojo. This may sound crazy, but I have Rojo as my as my running back 6. The reason why I have Rojo as my running back 6 is because of the matchup that he's playing. He is playing the New York Jets. The New York Jets are the best matchup for running backs by far. They are allowing 60% points over average. That means whatever players the Jets have played, whatever they average against other teams, the Jets give up 60% more points than that.
Yeah.
The Jets have been so bad. They've given up running back one games to 2 running backs on the same team multiple times. That's how bad the Jets running defense is. And this is going to be a Tampa Bay offense that's missing some wide receivers. So they're going to turn around. They're going to hand that ball to Ronald Jones 20 times. And if Ronald Jones touches that ball 20 times, trust he's going to be a running back 1 very, very comfortably. Then you got Austin Eckler, who you can't bench. So it's between, for me, Swift, Michelle, J. Jeff. Is that how you're seeing it, Kevin? And then I'll get to that question after you give your thoughts.
I think that's so. When I'm looking at the running back spots and I'm going over it, I think you have to start Eckler. Like that's not a question. I would, with everything you have with Rojo, I do think that Keyshawn Vaughn's going to have a little bit of a run this game. Hey, Vaughn's back, baby. All you guys that used that first round dynasty pick on him a couple of weeks ago, it all panned out for week 17 in 2022. Look at you guys. You guys did it. We made it. But I think that, gosh, probably Michelle, right? Just based on volume. So I'm kind of there with you there. The flex is interesting. So I'm going to throw it back to you. I know you're the host, but I just, for Justin Jefferson, it's hard to sit him. But if you have Chase, I think that kind of sets the tone a little bit differently, especially that passing offense, which is what you're there. Like Chase would be the guy for me, just because I think that he's going to get the volume there. You don't have to worry about Burrow, and you're going to have basically the better. They're both great wide receivers, and Chase would be like the guy that I'm like, okay, maybe if I have those guys, that I'm comfortable moving on from Justin.
Okay, so let's dive in. So first of all, the Ronald Jones thing, because you did say Keyshawn Vaughn, and I think that's something that needs to be addressed, because Keyshawn Vaughn did see 36% of the snaps last week to Ronald Jones' 52% of the snaps, but Ronald Jones got the most work by far. He got 69% of the rushes. He got 10% of the targets, as opposed to Keyshawn Vaughn getting only 3% of the targets. What he did, Keyshawn Vaughn, with that target was a very miraculous, great run. So I do think there's room for Keyshawn Vaughn, to be a desperation flex play, and Ronald Jones still end as a high-end RB1. So for me, that's why that doesn't really scare me away from Rojo. I'm staying away from Chase in this game. I think that he's been so up and down, and when you have these kind of options, I want more of a guaranteed floor rather than an upside guy, because you got Kupp, you got Adams, you got Eckler, you got maybe Rojo, right? If you're starting Rojo, those 4 guys are going to get you enough points to have a nice core. So then what are you going to do after that? Swift has high upside. You got Michelle, got Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. For me personally, this one's a tough one, man. I might have to lean Chase here, actually, now that I look at it. I'm high on Sony Michel, but I'm nervous about that Rams matchup. That matchup, excuse me. I think that that matchup against Baltimore I really like Van Jefferson in this game. I think OBJ is going to have a good game. I really think that the wide receivers are going to do the damage rather than Michel. But I could be left with egg on my face when Michel runs for 2 touchdowns against a reeling Baltimore squad. For me, I'm going to say Eckler, Rojo, and Jamar Chase. Eckler, Rojo, and Jamar Chase.
And I think this is a very good problem to have. So,
yeah.
Jake, if you have this problem, I think with the guys that you have starting there's a lot of floor guys there. But based on your starting lineup, so here's the thing when I look at this, I'm going to start Justin Jefferson wherever I have them, yes. But that's because I don't have Kupp and Adams as my other 2 wide receivers either. Like, so if you have Kupp and Adams, I feel like if you go Chase, that's a safer floor play because Kupp and Adams are going to probably hit their mark there. So to me, when I'm looking at this question, it's based on roster construction. So give me Chase probably in that flex spot.
It's crazy because when you're looking at this, you could see how he drafted. It's like, okay, Eckler first round, Adams on the way back, Justin Jefferson, and then Cooper Kupp, and then DeAndre Swift. It's like, oh man, I would have loved to have that first 5. That would have been a nice first 5. All right, Charles Kearney next. I have Boston Scott sliding in for Gibson going down. Patterson is available. Do I stick with Scott or do I pivot? I think this was a lot easier of a question when Jordan Howard was questionable. I think that it's just there's too many scenarios if we're running a giant simulation. We simulate this game 100 times. There's too many times where Boston Scott has 0 in this game that for me to really want to play him in a spot where I'm not looking at a guy that has a viable chance to outperform him in Patterson. But then again, Patterson hasn't done anything. So does he really have that viable chance? Are you trusting that Washington offense? How are you leaning, Kevin, while I mull this over?
Volume, right? Patterson, I think, is kind of where I'm at. Just based on, hey, you know what? McKissick's on IR. You have Antonio Gibson out. You're going to be looking at that, and you're going to see it. Now, I will say this. The Eagles have allowed the 3rd fewest points per game to opposing running backs. So I think that when you're looking at that from that perspective, then you might want to kind of pivot over to, Jared Patterson and just say, you know what? I'm going to go with Jared Patterson I do think that they're going to get him targets. So I do think that Patterson does get some receiving targets in this game. Whereas Boston Scott, like you said, the simulation was a good analogy there. Like, you know what? We don't know necessarily where it's going to be with Scott and all of how their volume is going to work. So give me the volume. I'm going to take Patterson and I'm going to go with that. And this is this icky pick too. Like, don't think I'm like super confident about this, but I would just go volume. I've really changed my role with running backs. To me, it's all about volume, and that's how I start them, and that's how I come down to my decisions with these guys.
I think it's a good way to look at it. I think the volume is there. It's really volume versus matchup, right? Because when you're talking about the Eagles, they're not the worst matchup for running backs. 20th right now. They're allowing just under the average, so about 7% under the average that other teams surrender to the players that they play. So, but they have been allowing 22.2 points to the running back. If Jared Patterson has an opportunity and gets 15 of those points that they've been averaging, then you're really happy with that. And Washington is technically a worse matchup, which is taking me by surprise now. Like Washington's been really, really susceptible to the pass, but they're the 23rd best matchup. So you're talking about at this point volume plus the better matchup, and that's Jared Patterson. So I'm gonna lean Jared Patterson as well. Oh, we are on a roll. We're already an hour in. I feel like we just got started. Let's get a little stretch in here. Give me my ears a little air. All right, it's championship week, baby. It's like it's an adrenaline rush. I love it. All right, Hanson De La Garza. Thanks, guys. Another question. Who would you start at wide receiver? Tyreek Hill, Deebo Samuel, Cooper Kupp, or Antonio Brown? Deebo and Cooper Kupp. So basically Tyreek Hill or Antonio Brown. That's my question. Thanks for the help. So he wants us to know that he is definitely starting Deebo Samuel and Cooper Kupp, which is a great idea. For me, I mean, both great matchups, but with Antonio Brown's ankle, I'm going to lean Tyreek Hill because he's Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, he's Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is top 5 wide receiver. So I'm gonna go with Hill. I don't think that's that hard. I mean, if you got Hill, Deebo, and Cooper Kupp rolling out, congratulations on your championship.
All right, Johnny, Melgo, Patterson, or Rex Burkhead. Johnny playing for his first ever championship in the home league that has been going for, this is the 20-year anniversary of our home league, going for his first championship ever.
Oh man,
and this is a big one for him because we used to call him Mr. 7th place, and then he stepped his game up the last couple of years. He's been in the semifinals, and this is his first finals appearance. I'm rooting for him hard. Melgo, Patterson, or Burkhead. This is a tough question. Melgo's been good. Patterson has the volume. We just went over Patterson. I'm not playing Rex Burkhead. I'm not chasing what he had last week. Melgo or Patterson is for me. I'm guessing Jared Patterson, right? That could be Cordarrelle Patterson. I'm guessing Jared Patterson. So let's go as if it's Jared Patterson. Right now, leaning slightly Melvin Gordon. How do you feel?
Yeah, so I thought you brought up a good point, Burkhead. I always see this, like, don't chase fantasy points and don't chase what we saw last week because sometimes they can be outliers. So I think be careful there. To me, it's Melgo or Patterson, and I'm just going to go Patterson based on volume, like I just mentioned. I think that's kind of where I fall in this. When they're so close and when you have Javonte on the other side, I think I always just go with that. And it really what's going to come down with Melvin is one drive. And does he get that drive that goes into the red zone, and does he score? And I'm not comfortable with that. I'm going to go Patterson just based on volume.
All right. It's time for a narrative. You ready for this one? At the Chargers for Melgo, who signed with the Broncos and said, one of the reasons I'm signing with the Broncos is so I could play the Chargers twice a year.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's
been so long. It's been so long. I forgot Melvin played for the Chargers. That's how old I'm getting. I forget these things. That's what happens when you become a parent. I would say, hey, you know what? Revenge games are a real thing. Like my buddy Jeff Bell always talks about revenge games, and I always laugh about it. But he is right there. So we could see that. Now that you say it, I still would lean Patterson, but I could see revenge game Melgo coming back.
Yeah, it's a tough one here. Tough one. I think I'm going to lean the revenge game Melgo because it's also a good matchup against the Chargers defense. That is, they've taken Brandon Staley's philosophy that he had with the Rams, and they've just made it where they are just a run funnel defense. They will allow you to run. They will not allow you to pass. And I think because of that, I'm going to go with Melgo here. All right, Boyd says half PPR start 2. Damian Harris, Jacoby Myers, Dare, or Josh Jacobs. For me, this is easily Damian Harris and Josh Jacobs. How you feeling?
Yeah, I'm going Damian and Josh Jacobs. I wouldn't be comfortable playing the other two guys in a championship game.
Yeah, there's just too many variables. Yeah, too many variables. Well, I mean, Damian Harris isn't my favorite play this week. I think that if you're chasing him like he's a running back 1, I think he's a solid running back 2, and I think Josh Jacobs is also a solid running back 2 this week.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get to our next question. Benjamin Hare, defensive special teams. Dolphins versus Tennessee or Cowboys versus Arizona. Cowboys got me this far, but the Fins with the better matchup. Yes, agree. Definitely a better matchup. Remember what we said. We said the teams that could cause turnovers, that's where it's going to be felt the most. It's not going to be who gives up the least points. It's going to be who can have turnovers, who can maybe score a touchdown. Miami has had a nose for some sacks and a nose for turnovers in the last few games. For me, I'm going to ride that. I'm going to ride the Miami hot streak on defense, and I'm going to lean Miami on this one over the Cowboys versus Arizona. How you feeling?
You and me are gonna split on this but you gotta remember, everybody, I'm a Cowboys fan, so I have a little bias. So I'm gonna put that out in the universe so that you guys know. But I do think that we can get after there. I think they're susceptible to Arizona's line, susceptible to Lawrence and these guys being healthy. So I think you're gonna see some sacks in this game. If we can pressure Murray and get him to throw a few off balls, they don't really have necessarily the greatest wide receivers out there. So if Diggs and these guys that are ball hawks can come and get him, I think you could look for an interception for a touchdown as well. So I think I would lean the Cowboys just because I do think they can create turnovers. And I'm not as I'm not as high on that matchup that you guys have with Dolphins and Tennessee. I do think Tennessee is going to be a little bit better than people expect them to be this week against the Dolphins.
You know what? I'm gonna go with you. I'm gonna go with the Cowboys because when you watch a team closely and you're a fan of them, you understand the intricacies. And I'm gonna switch it. I'm gonna switch my pick to the Cowboys as well. You definitely dropped the wee bomb when you were talking about the Cowboys.
Listen, I lived through the Quincy Carter days and the Drew Henson days. If I can use we if I damn want to. Okay, it's 2022, but I'm a we guy. Yes.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm a Jets fan. I'm in the Quincy Carter days, right? Like I'm always in the Quincy Carter days. All right. Kevin M says Pat Freiermuth or Foster Moreau. I went over Foster Moreau's average. Matchup earlier this episode. They are in the third best matchup for tight ends. The Colts have been bleeding points to tight ends, and teams have been really scheming out Hunter Renfrow in the past couple games. You see Hunter Renfrow went from like a sure wide receiver 1 to only having 6 catches total in the last 2 games. So I think Foster Moreau gets involved in this game. And I think I'm leaning Foster Moreau in this one, particularly because Freiermuth is coming back from an injury and he's playing Monday night. So worst case scenario, and this is probably not going to happen, but worst case scenario, let's say Freiermuth is a late scratch. You'll have to play Eric Ebron, and it's just you could always if something crazy happens in Moreau, you could switch over to Freiermuth. And when you're talking about matchups like this and guys like this and tight ends, I'm gonna lean Moreau.
Yeah, this is close. We talked about it earlier with Moreau, but I'll probably go Moreau just based on targets. And then there's a lot of question marks about there, and he has less weapons to deal with. He's got Hunter and Moreau. That's pretty much it, what we're going to see. So based on scheme and matchup, I think I would go Moreau here.
All right, so we are in agreement on that one. Next one, John Stelio says Barkley or Melgo, fellas. Barkley's been an interesting one. Melgo has been a hot topic of conversation on this whole. So we've talked about both of them. For me, it's Melgo. I'm a little bit of narrative chasing against the Chargers. I think more matchup chasing against the Chargers, where I've seen him put up a great game on unlimited targets, and Barkley, on the other hand, is in a terrible matchup with the backup quarterback. Just not the same. He's averaging 3.5 yards per carry. And I know yards per carry is not the most efficient way to measure someone, but it's something to be said that he's averaging 3.5 yards a carry, which is the lowest among qualifying running backs. I'm not chasing Barkley in a bad matchup coming off an injury. I'm going to go with Melgo here.
Yeah. God, I just said follow the volume. Barkley's just that offense is just. I'm just worried with this. I'm going to go Melgo as well, slightly ahead of Barkley, just because that offense is so bad, and they are going to stack that box. And you're going to Barkley's going to have to do one of those things where he breaks out, and I don't necessarily see that happening. Like I said, my barrier for him, or my line for him, is like 1150 and 0 touchdowns. If he gets that touchdown, fine. Then you're looking at 11 to 12 PPR points. But I think Melgo, and you changed my idea with the narrative thing, and I do think that they might feed him a little bit this game too with that. So I think you'd be more comfortable starting Melgo.
Usually narrative doesn't play too much of a role in what I say, but I've been watching. Have you been watching the in-season Colts Hard Knocks on HBO by any chance?
I'm too poor to have HBO, so I have not. But yeah, why don't you let us know what that looks like? I have not been able to stream it illegally anywhere yet.
It's very cool, man. It's a cool look into the locker room. It's Hard Knocks except during the season, so it's a really inside look. And things like T.Y. Hilton always killing Houston is something that's talked about, is known for, like, everyone knows, like, oh, it's T.Y. Hilton versus Houston week, he kills them. And it's things like that. Like, it's like, oh, these guys don't just like, all right, it's not just like, let's go, like, they're talking about this too. So I think Melvin Gordon has already made it clear that he wants to go against the Chargers and at home and in the new Charger Stadium. I think that's the narrative that you can kind of chase a little bit. Mike Gamage says Goddard or Knox PPR. This is that ugly middle tight end kind of situation where you can have a great game or you can have a shit game. For me, I'm going to go with, I got Dallas Goddard at 5 and Dawson Knox at 6 right now. So that's where I'm at.
To me, I think Goddard is kind of the safer play, in my opinion, just because I think that you've seen that he's had targets. He's been efficient. I know last week he didn't do a great game, but that was a weird game script for them. I think it changes a little bit against Washington. You can see him get involved. But you know what? Goddard is, even with Devonta, and I love Devonta, but he got put in a weird situation there. I think Goddard's their target one. Like, I think Hurts looks for him a lot in the RPOs, and you're going to see him a lot too in different formats, especially in play action. So I think Goddard can be what we call, I don't know, league winners, but whatever the hell that means. I see it on Twitter all the time. But I think Goddard could be that guy to where we're talking about, like, wow, he had 2 touchdowns this game.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you on that one. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna lean Goddard too. I got him one spot ahead, so I would go Goddard. All right, let's see here. Half PPR with 0.5 tight end premium on top. Tyler Conklin or Cameron Brate. This one is, I think, a little bit more interesting than maybe it is on paper, because Cameron Brate has been one of the league leaders, and I don't have the number in front of me. I'm trying to get it, but it's been one of the league leaders in red zone targets this year. They like to throw to him in the end zone. Last week, he scored a touchdown. So the question is, do you chase a touchdown, or do you chase maybe the tendency for backup quarterbacks to hyper target tight ends? How are you feeling about that in this matchup?
This matchup makes me gross. There's nothing else out here you could stream, Boyd. I feel like there's got to be something else out there you could stream. I would, I'd probably go Brate just because of the touchdown, and I think that maybe it could be there. Conklin as well. I mean, I know Thielen being out and all those type of things but again, I think they're going to go to Jefferson. We could see it. Give me Brate in a weird way, but I don't feel good about this. Just go find Brevin Jordan and start him. That's what I'm
neither. The rare neither. All right. Boyd also said, let's go, Johnny, believer in Johnny P. All right. So we got about 14 minutes left, so we are going to try and get to all these questions, so we're going to go a little faster. David Arse, I think. Great profile picture. My opponent has Mitchell. I have Wilson. Should I start Wilson, Gore, or Scott? I also have Jordan Howard already starting. Oof, that's a tough one. I mean, I'm not gonna go Scott with Jordan Howard already starting. I think that's but he might be the best of the bunch here. How do you feel about starting teammates? I started Zeke and Pollard a few times this year, and it worked out for me.
It depends on the matchup. I think what I try to do is, if I'm going to start like that, like Zeke and Pollard I've done, where I know Zeke will get like the first half carries, and if they blow out the team, I think Pollard can get the targets afterwards. I don't necessarily see that with Jordan Howard and Scott. I think that's a tough one. I might actually start Wilson in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because technically Wilson's kind of like the third running option in that backfield. Behind Debo. So do you want to take a third option? But you want to go Scott and Jordan? Like, here's the thing. Eagles running back is going to produce. You have a pretty good chance that Wilson and Gore do nothing. And at least maybe you'll have the one running back that produces a big game. And if they both get in the end zone, I think I'd go Scott. It sucks to say, but I think that's where I'm leaning. And then, David, you have another question. Huntley or Lance? We actually addressed this question before again, and we think we both agreed that Lance would be the play for us.
Yeah, Lance would be a play for me.
Boyd says, I feel like CP3 when I ask a question with people already in my lineup, then you guys dunk it by confirming my priors. Just shout out for being my Blake Griffin. You got it, Boyd. I hope that we didn't do that with the tight ends, but I hope that we did that with the other ones. Zach Harrison says, Jared Patterson, Renfro, Singletary in the flex, standard. I'm gonna go with Singletary.
Yeah, standard. I go Singletary. If it was PPR, I'd probably go Renfro.
Zach Harrison also says, Eagles or Colts defense. This is an easy one for me. I've been stashing the Eagles defense for this matchup for a long time. I'm going with the Eagles defense against the Washington football team. They've been great. The Eagles defense. They've been great.
Yeah, I think go Eagles here because that Washington team's a mess right now.
Christopher Sliwa. Did you run for mayor in New York is the question. Is Rashad Penny worth starting in the flex over Odell Amon-Ra St. Brown or Michael Pittman. I have Pittman as my wide receiver 2, but I could switch it around if Penny is worth it. For me, I'm starting Odell and Penny. Of these two, I already told you guys why I'm so high on Rashad Penny. I truly believe that Rashad Penny and Rojo are league-winning running backs this year. We at BroTo are pretty, I guess, famous or infamous for not being shy to start a running back that wouldn't be considered maybe the most talented or doesn't have the most stats this year. If he has the opportunity, we go with him. And I think Rashad Penny is going to have that opportunity today big time. And I think that Odell Beckham in a matchup against the Ravens defense that you just saw got absolutely demolished last week. I think Odell Beckham is where I'm leaning. So I'd go Penny and Odell. How are you leaning?
Yeah, I was big on Penny last week, and he's looked pretty good in certain spots, and we've seen him last week do really well. I think you have to start Penny here because I do think that he's going to get the volume. The only other guy that I would say, okay, maybe is Amon-Ra, maybe, but that really just determines basically what that quarterback play is going to look like. I think there's a lot of question marks with Swift comebacks. I think that kind of limits Amon-Ra, so I would be comfortable starting Penny in this situation.
This is this next one by Joe Arias, and he's been a loyal fan. He just beat his brother to get to the finals, so we're trying to get him that championship. Renfrow or Pittman full PPR is a great question because this was easily Renfrow a couple weeks ago, but he's been getting shut down, and Kenny Moore has been excellent for Indianapolis. I think I'm still going to lean Renfrow slightly. I'm still going to lean Renfrow slightly. Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah, Renfrow is right now he's my wide receiver 17 and Pittman's wide receiver 21 for me. So if you're looking at it from that perspective, I think I have to go with Renfrow. I think reception is going to be there. I do think that I think we've seen his absolute floor the last couple of weeks. I think he's going to return back to the medium this week and you'll be okay with starting him.
It's funny. I have Renfrow at 16 and Pittman at 20. So same difference, but just shifted down one. Yeah. Boyd, it's a dynasty league and waivers are stinky, but I have Waller and he's out. Oh, okay. Well, Boyd, good luck with that one. Best options of the waiver are Steven Anderson and Jeff Swain. Okay. Well, good luck, kid. Good luck. Jake from IT says Conklin is questionable with a hamstring injury and on Sunday night. Yeah, that's very true. Don't forget that is a big. I would lean against Conklin. We already told you to lean against Conklin, but that's even more of a reason to lean against him. Christopher says also with Lamar out, which do I go, Mac or Lance? We talked about this earlier. I think we both agreed Lance.
Yeah, Lance.
And
upside rushing.
Kyle Shanahan also agreed Lance over Mac. Yeah, thank you. I know it's Curtis Lee. Well, I'm just playing, bro. All right, Boyd, MPJ, or is that Michael Pittman Jr.? Is that these? Yeah, these right.
Kids.
Yeah. I'm guessing Michael Pittman Jr. Gallup PPR. I need guidance from the Cowboy fan. I appreciate you, fella. Before we get the Cowboy fan in this, I'm going to say with Carson Wentz back, I'm definitely going with Michael Pittman here. How do you feel?
Michael Pittman, just because he's going to be that option for him. Gallup's always Gallup is always a play. Like if I'm starting Gallup, it's a high ceiling play. Hopefully he scores and has like 4 catches and a big touchdown. But no, I go Michael Pittman there. No questions.
We're coming down to the wire here. 7 minutes left in crunch time. This is where champions are made. Benjamin Hare says, last one for y'all. 0.5 PPR, 1 running back. Burkhead, Jeff Wilson, Ramondre Stevenson, Jordan Howard. Currently Burkhead, but I don't feel great with any. For me, I'm gonna go with Jordan Howard here. I think that Jordan Howard has the most upside of the bunch. I'm not chasing Burkhead. I know Burkhead had a big game last week. I'm not chasing it. I'm not as high on Burkhead as some people are. I just don't want any part of chasing a Rex Burkhead game. He's my RB33, so I don't think he's unplayable. But right now, Jordan Howard's my RB28, and I'm going to go with him against a very susceptible Washington matchup.
Yeah, I would go Howard as well. I think that Howard's going to have one of those games where you see the volume, he can score touchdowns there. I don't want Jeff Wilson or Ramondre. I think it's either Burkhead or Howard, but I'm okay with Howard.
Oh man, we're about to come up on we're going to end this, I think, on a Joe Mixon question, which is just so appropriate. Josh Gonzalez says championship Sunday, Pitts or Schultz at tight end. Again, yeah, this one's a tough one. I think I'm leaning Schultz. I have them back to back in my rankings. I have Schultz a little bit higher. Oh no, I'm sorry. I have Pitts one higher than Schultz, but I'm moving that right now. I'm making Schultz a little higher than Pitts because Kyle Pitts at Buffalo is just not something I want. I just don't want it.
Yeah, just based on the last few games, I do like what Pitts did last game, but I think Schultz to me is the safer option, and I think that he can score. And so the refusal of Falcons to use Pitts in the red zone is it boggles my mind. So I'm going to go Schultz here, just based on the floor play.
All right. So I'm gonna save the Mixon question for last. David says 14-team league. That's why my options are crappy. My name is pronounced RC. Oh, David RC. Excellent.
David RC.
Excellent. Last one that we have here. Give it your last question if you can't get it. This one's a tough one. Sony Michel, Rojo, Mixon, Chubb, Swift, start 2 running backs. Oh boy. According to my rankings, if I'm going strictly by my rankings, I'm going to start Nick Chubb and I'm going to start Ronald Jones. Joe Mixon, I think, has that downside. You know how we feel about Joe Mixon. It's a running joke, but with all seriousness, Joe Mixon has been good. I had a hypothetical argument a couple weeks ago on Twitter with somebody that's like, if Joe Mixon ends the year with 5 bad games, like he didn't. So Joe Mixon has been the man that you've hoped. But for me, I have Nick Chubb at RB2, and I have Ronald Jones at RB6, and I have Joe Mixon at RB12. So although I think you're looking at least 3 running back ones in this list, I think that even though I love Rojo, I'm going to go Mixon and Chubb because those are the guys that have carried me there personally.
Yeah, I'm going to go Mixon and Chubb on this. I got to stay with the brand with Mixon. But yeah, I'm going to go Mixon, Chubb, especially with the touchdowns. And I do think when you see Mixon, the volume's been there, even though like we talked about like what his games have been in PPR formats and stuff like that. I mean, last game really showed us what they wanted to do with him, especially the targets in the receiving game. I know he had that big long catch there, but he had 6 targets and 6 receptions. So I do think he's going to give you some upside there. They feed him. And when you're looking at it, they like to score with touchdowns in the red zone there. So I like Mixon and Chubb.
And the last one, or start 3 and bench Kittle, who's currently in my flex. Ooh. I think that I would. Who's your tight end that you're benching Kittle and starting in the flex? Unless it's Kelsey, unless you're starting Travis Kelsey, I would move Kittle into my tight end spot, bench whatever tight end that I'm starting, and start Rojo. I think that's where I would go with that.
Yeah. No tight end league.
No tight end league. Interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna say I'd start. This is a tough one. With Trey Lance in at quarterback, I'm gonna start Rojo over George Kittle.
Yeah, I would say that with the uncertainty with the quarterback, how they're going to use Kittle in this, especially because I think it's going to be more of a rushing attack. So I think game script can be a little weird. I wouldn't mind dropping Kittle and playing one of those running back. I really think you can't go wrong with either Rojo or Michelle. I'd probably go Rojo based on matchup.
Kevin, aka at @DuBois_22 on Twitter. Tell them where they can find you, man.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter as always. I'm going to be doing a little bit of Fantasy Pros work, so I'm a featured Devy writer there. I have a couple articles coming out at the end of the week or at the end of the month this week for fantasy there, and you can also find me at the Devy Royale. And if you like college football, you like some Devy stuff, we have a big announcement coming in the next month and a half of a big work that we're going to do. So if you like college football and you're interested in Devy, keep an eye out for the Devy Royale with something we got coming for you guys.
I got to tell you guys, Kevin is one of the guys I go to for Devy stuff. I'm not involved in that at all. I don't know, and I definitely go to see Kevin's stuff for Devy. All of Kevin's stuff, as you can see, he came prepared today, but especially for that Devy stuff, for sure. And before we go, we got 1 minute left on this. Do you have a hot take for today?
Oh, hot take. You know what? Yeah, let's say this. I think that Trey Lance is going to be a top 5 Q quarterback today.
Woo! Spicy.
Let's go hot take.
I
Trey
love
Lance.
it.
Let me finish with that hot take.
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna put 3 hot takes out there for today, and you can quote me on this one. Ronald Jones, Elijah Penny, both RB1s this week, and Cordarrelle Patterson finishes outside of the top 24 running backs and the top 36 wide receivers. I think Cordarrelle Patterson is a guy that's you're gonna end up regretting starting today. With that being said, thank you so much for joining us on Crunch Time Live. Before we were talking about how we might not get as many questions this week because it's championship week, and here we are we did not even have a second to breathe. And thank you guys for that. We love you. We hope that we bring you fantasy championships. With that, don't forget to download the Fantasy Football by BRoto app, baby. Peace, everyone.